how does Taylor Swift feel about her text with Blake Lively being unsealed? Well, she feels violated, of course.
Taylor Swift has responded. She is not.
Stuff that she was whining about in these text messages as evidence of Justin Baldoni's just disgusting sexual harassment is so pathetic. Either she is the thinnest skinned person alive, or she was just trying to screw him over.
The silence was broken by a single definitive action that sent shockwaves through the inner circles of Hollywood. Taylor Swift didn't release a statement or post a cryptic lyric. She simply cut the cord. Reports have surfaced that the most powerful woman in music underwent a total digital purge, changing her phone number and freezing out her inner circle after private texts with Blake Lively were unsealed in a messy legal battle. This wasn't just a glitch in a friendship, it was a scorched earth response to what sources call a massive breach of trust. The mastermind was done playing nice, and the explosion of fallout was only just beginning.
It's been navigating a trying time as her private messages were leaked. It's honestly been really hard for Taylor, one source says. Having her texts out there made her feel exposed and kind of violated, like something privately suddenly wasn't hers anymore.
The situation turned volatile the moment those private messages hit the public record. For Taylor, it wasn't just about the words on the screen, it was the feeling of being violated. These were friend-to-friend messages, never intended for court filings or media breakdowns, yet they were reportedly weaponized as leverage without her consent. Once the seal was broken, the story changed instantly. It was no longer about vibes or rumors. People could see exactly how Taylor felt, with dates, tone, and a growing distance that suggested she was waking up to a reality she never signed up for in the first place.
And not uncross.
It sucks when your personal information, your personal conversations get aired out, but at the same time, this is a court case and this is where we're at. And she's allowed to feel how she feels, and people are allowed to have issues with it because of what they've read.
And the text.
Blake Lively's carefully curated image as a victim began to crumble the moment these receipts saw the light of day. The unsealed text revealed a side of the dynamic that many never expected, showing how Taylor's name, influence, and even her music were being used as strategic pieces on a chessboard. Taylor reportedly felt dragged into a circus she had no dog in, finding herself positioned as a co-conspirator rather than the innocent bystander she believed she was. This realization didn't just hurt, it triggered a defensive shift that would eventually leave Blake standing completely alone in the spotlight.
At the same time, Us Weekly reports that Taylor Swift is having a hard time shaking off her private text with Blake being made public, and now officially a part of the controversial legal battle.
In the high-stakes world of Hollywood, a phone number change is the ultimate hard reset. It's not a dramatic cry for attention, it's a tactical shutdown. Taylor is known for valuing her personal space and keeping her circle tight, so when things get this messy, she closes the door. Sources say this was a full reset, a way to regain her sanity by controlling exactly who can reach out to her and when. By cutting off access, she sent a louder message than any public statement ever could. She was reclaiming her narrative and signaling that a line had been crossed that could never be uncrossed again.
Taylor Swift's team has been saying that Blake Lively betrayed her, that she was an innocent bystander, that she just happened to walk into the penthouse where Blake was having a showdown with Justin Baldoni.
Her side has always made it seem like she had nothing to do with all this circus, this three-ring circus.
No doubt.
The betrayal runs deeper than just leaked words. It's about the mechanics of the movie industry. The documents suggest that Blake positioned Taylor as leverage in private while acting shocked when that leverage became visible to the public. You cannot play the innocent party when the receipts show you moving pieces around to secure your own power. Taylor saw the situation reframed not as a creative conflict, but as a terminal breach of trust. It's a distinction that Blake apparently failed to grasp until it was too late and her biggest shield had already walked away from the entire project.
Trying to screw him over, or she just decided that she wanted this movie to be hers, and in her effort to bully him out, really set him up with her power by going to actresses with less power than she had and so on, and trying to gin up a little campaign.
The text also highlighted a disturbing pattern of communication that shifted from intimate to cold. Between mid-2023 and late 2024, the language between the two stars reportedly transformed into something that read more like a corporate memo than a friendship. Taylor herself allegedly acknowledged this change, calling out the communication as impersonal and calculated. When intimacy disappears and is replaced by stiff, formal language, it's a clear sign that the foundation of trust has eroded. This wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow-motion collapse that was documented in real time through every message.
I think this bitch, meaning Baldoni, knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin.
The drama surrounding the film It Ends With Us became the catalyst for this fallout. Allegations surfaced that Blake tried to bully the director Justin Baldoni out of his own movie by using her A-list connections as a threat. In some of the most shocking texts, Blake reportedly referred to the director with derogatory names and mocked his professional standing. She even allegedly asked Taylor to endorse a revised script that Taylor hadn't even read. This wasn't just about creative differences, it was a power play intended to wrest control of the film away from its director using borrowed influence.
Actually texted Blake, and this is another quote, if Justin was strategic, he would be like, no Taylor Swift in the trailer because that gives you more power over the film.
One of the most damaging revelations was the tiny violin reference found in the messages. What might have seemed like playful banter in a different context was actually a symbol of contempt slipping through the cracks. It was a fracture point in the relationship that showed a lack of empathy for the story being told. When the public caught wind of these trivializing comments, the backlash was swift. People began to question how someone could be so casual about a story involving domestic violence while simultaneously promoting a hair care line during the film's high-profile press tour.
Like she was a bitch. She tried to take over the movie. She got a bunch of negative publicity because she was promoting her hairline products when she's pushing a movie about domestic violence, and there was a backlash in the press. And then she got her hands on some PR people who work with Justin.
As the scandal grew, the Swifties did something unusual. They stayed silent. Usually Taylor's fan base is a mobilized force ready to defend her associates at any cost, but this time they disengaged. The silence was deadly because Blake's entire survival strategy depended on Taylor's gravity. Without the fans rushing to her defense, Blake was left standing alone with the documents. It signaled that even the most loyal followers saw the inconsistency in the narrative. They chose to step back, and in doing so, they left Blake's reputation to sink under the weight of her own strategic choices.
Swifties are going to join it right at dawn now and say, how dare you, Justin, do this? Or how dare even Blake? We all do need to take a pause as well and say, how dare you, Taylor, be so trivial, even in private, about someone's story? And if you got caught doing that and it's Blake's fault, then you have to come out and
The numbers started speaking louder than any PR spin could manage. Over 9,000 signatures appeared on a petition demanding that Blake lose her producer mark. This wasn't just fringe noise, it was a measurable signal of reputational erosion that caught the attention of studio executives. When the public begins to question the professional standing and credibility of a producer, the industry takes notice. PGA marks are built on trust, and once that trust is questioned by thousands of people, it is rarely restored, regardless of how many red carpets or curated interviews someone does.
Love you so much, she writes to Taylor. I would not be okay through any of this if it weren't for you.
Behind the scenes, the battle for the final cut of the movie revealed the truth about the creative direction. Studio Communications reportedly showed that Justin Baldoni's version of the film actually tested better with audience focus groups. This single fact is brutal because it removes the moral high ground Blake tried to stand on during the conflict. If the audience preferred the director's version, then the fight was never about protecting the art or the values of the story. It was purely about control and ego, a revelation that made the tech scandal even more damaging to her image.
I hope Taylor's going to reach out to Justin privately and sort this out at some point, or as Kim suggested live, probably will write a song about it. 100%. And I'm not trying to trivialize her or say she's not in the wrong. My only issue here is, and
Taylor's involvement in the mess shifted from symbolic to strategic the moment music licensing entered the conversation. The unsealed texts show she understood exactly how her name was being used to push certain versions of the film. This wasn't just emotional support for a friend, it was a sophisticated awareness of power dynamics. Her comments in the messages reflect long-term positioning, not just impulsive loyalty. This completely undercuts the idea that she was a clueless bystander. She knew the stakes, and she knew exactly how her influence was being wielded by those around her.
See here is a woman who is determined to wrest control of the film from him, as Brian's alleging, who is doing her best with her A-list celebrities to push support for her cut of the film, which normally an actress doesn't even get, for her to kind of threaten Justin in some texts about her, her dragon.
Despite public denials, the messages reveal a clear familiarity with script drafts and scene debates that wasn't previously disclosed. You do not accidentally understand that much about a production unless you are deeply embedded in the process. Once these contradictions went public, Taylor's team had no choice but to pivot into damage control. By early 2025, the tone had shifted decisively toward distance. The friendship was no longer something to be protected. It was a liability that needed to be contained before it could do any more damage to Taylor's own meticulously managed brand.
One move ended the game.
During the course of the movie, where Lively asked Taylor Swift for help, she referred to Baldoni as the doofus director of my movie. She described him as a clown who, quote, thinks he's a writer now. She asked Swift to endorse the revised script she was proposing. Even though she hadn't read it, she texted to Taylor Swift.
The irony of the situation is that Blake built what she thought was an unbreakable shield of influence, only to realize she had actually built a paper trail. Paper trails don't care about charisma or how good someone looks on a red carpet. They sit there with timestamps, waiting to be read. By trying to dominate the optics of the situation, Blake accidentally centered herself as the credibility problem. The harder she tried to push her narrative, the more the internal messages contradicted her public framing, leading to a total collapse of her smear campaign against the director. Taylor Swift's team eventually made it clear that she was collateral damage, not a co-conspirator. This move was devastating because it flipped the power dynamic overnight. Blake went from being a protected friend to being an exposed liability in a single news cycle. Taylor didn't need to attack her or even mention her name. She just needed to reframe her own position as someone pulled into chaos she didn't create. That subtle shift crushed Blake's remaining defense, as her entire strategy had been built on her proximity to Taylor's untouchable status in the industry. The fallout marked the effective end of Blake's ability to control the story. From that point on, she was reacting to the headlines rather than directing them. Every new detail that emerged made her look less like a victim and more like an operator orchestrating pressure behind the scenes. In Hollywood, ego is often forgiven, but manipulation is not. Once the text revealed coordination and coercion, collaborators started seeing risk where they once saw star power. Risk is poison in the film industry, and once you become a liability, the doors begin to close very quickly. A trial date is looming for May, and it hangs over the entire situation like a dark cloud. There is no guarantee that further damaging information won't come out during cross-examination. Every text, every message, and every high-profile name pulled into this mess becomes fair game once the proceedings begin. The blast radius of this scandal is expanding, and each new name surfacing in the text only adds to the pressure. Blake cannot outtalk these documents under oath, and she certainly cannot charisma her way through a series of documented timestamps and cold hard receipts. One text message allegedly revealed that Blake admitted the director never actually said the things that were being planted in the media. This is a massive blow to her credibility. When people sound like they are drafting testimony instead of reacting in the moment, their integrity dies. The inconsistencies across her private and public statements have become the focal point of the controversy. It suggests that the entire narrative was a post-fact construction designed to justify her actions, rather than a genuine reaction to misconduct. This revelation alone has shifted public sentiment against her. Taylor Swift knows exactly when to speak and when to vanish. Her silence during this phase is surgical. She is letting the numbers speak, letting the document speak, and letting Blake exhaust herself trying to explain away the unexplainable. This asymmetry is the real power imbalance at play here. While Blake is fighting for her professional life, Taylor has already moved on, having successfully separated her brand from the chaos. It's a masterclass in narrative timing that Blake clearly never understood, proving that being near power is not the same thing as commanding it. The impact on Blake's career could be long-lasting. Studios and potential collaborators now see the high level of risk associated with her projects. The fact that audience testing favored the director's cut over hers is a professional stain that won't wash off easily. Executives pay attention to what the public wants, and if the public prefers a version of a film that was being suppressed through influence, it raises serious questions about a producer's judgment. The PGA mark is a symbol of professional excellence, and having 9,000 people call for its removal is a nightmare for any actor-producer. Taylor's exit from the friendship was remarkably clean. There were no messy statements or emotional essays posted to social media. There was just distance. This approach shows a deep understanding of how to handle a betrayal at her level of fame. By simply shrinking her orbit and reclaiming her time, she made Blake's presence in her life irrelevant. It was a strategic withdrawal that ended the game before Blake even realized the rules had changed. It serves as a reminder that the most powerful thing you can do when someone crosses a line is to simply stop providing them with access. As the legal battle continues, the world is watching to see if Taylor will ever address the situation directly. Some speculate she might even process the experience through her music, as she has done with so many other high-profile fallouts in the past. Whether it's a song or just continued silence, Taylor has already won the battle of public perception. She took the hit, adjusted her circle, and moved forward with her reputation largely intact. Meanwhile, the unsealed texts remain as a permanent record of a friendship that wasn't what it appeared to be on the surface. Ultimately, this scandal is about the consequences of using people as leverage. Blake Lively tried to build a narrative using Taylor's name as a shield, but she didn't account for what happens when that shield is removed. The result was a total collapse of her credibility and a fracture in one of Hollywood's most famous friendships. As the May trial approaches, the documents will continue to tell the story that neither woman can change now. Taylor's explosion of boundaries was a necessary act of self-preservation, leaving Blake to face the fallout of the mess she orchestrated all by herself.